This story is titled My Wife Left Me for Her Ex Just 2 Weeks After Our Wedding. Now she wants a second chance. Everyone, before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. Never thought I'd be one of those guys posting about their marriage problems on Reddit, but life's funny like that. I guess this whole situation is so messed up that I need to get it off my chest, and maybe writing it down will help me process everything that's happened. Fair warning, this is going to be a long post. I 30 male was married to Emma 28 female for literally just 2 weeks before everything went straight to hell. 2 weeks. Like we still had wedding gifts sitting unopened in our living room when she decided to blow up our entire life. Still can't believe this is my life. RN some background, I guess. I'm a structural engineer, mainly work on skyscrapers and big commercial projects. Been doing this for about 8 years now and honestly love my job, even though the hours can be crazy sometimes. Emma was as IDK, what to call her now, a wildlife veterinarian, which is actually how we met. Kind of a funny story. We had this injured hawk at one of my construction sites, and my site manager called the local wildlife center. Emma shows up in these muddy boots and messy hair, looking completely out of place among all the guys in hard hats. But man, the way she handled that hawk was something else. She was so confident and gentle at the same time, knew exactly what she was doing. We started talking while she was treating the hawk, and I found out she just moved to the city. I offered to show her around sometime. Smooth, I know, LOL, and surprisingly she said yes. That turned into dinner, which turned into more dates, and before I knew it, we'd been together for 3 years. Everything seemed perfect, like we had our little arguments about stupid stuff like whose turn it was to do laundry or me working late, but nothing major. She supported my insane work schedule, had some huge projects going on, and I supported her thing about trying to save every injured animal in a 50m radius. Our apartment basically turned into a mini animal hospital. Sometimes we had this 3-legged raccoon living in our guest bathroom for a week once, but that's another story. We wanted the same things in life. Couple kids down the road, house in the suburbs, dogs. Obviously with her job, we even agreed on stupid little things like both hating cilantro and loving true crime documentaries. Looking back now, maybe things were too perfect, if that makes sense. The wedding was exactly what she wanted, this fancy vineyard ceremony that cost me an arm and a leg. Took me like a year to save up for it, but seeing her happy made it worth it. Her dad, who's the scary-looking ex-military guy covered in tattoos, actually started crying walking her down the aisle. Never thought I'd see that dude cry, but there he was. My college buddies all flew in, even my best friend Kyle, who's been working on this massive project in Dubai for the past 2 years. He actually warned me about some red flags he'd noticed with Emma, but I brushed him off like an idiot. Should have listened to him, but you know what they say about love being blind and all that BS. The ceremony was beautiful. I guess Emma spent months planning every little detail, the flowers, the music, the special we'd ordered from this vineyard we visited on vacation. She even hired this lady to do calligraphy on all the place cards, which cost a fortune. My mom kept saying she'd never seen a more beautiful wedding, but now I'm wondering if she was just being nice. The reception was wild. We had this amazing band that kept everyone dancing all night. Emma's cousins from Australia came and taught everyone some crazy drinking game that had half the wedding party hung over the next day. I remember looking at Emma during our first dance thinking how lucky I was, and how this was the start of our perfect life together. The honeymoon was in Bali. Took me 6 months of overtime and saving every penny to afford it, but Emma had always dreamed of going there. Got back home and everything seemed great. For exactly 14 days we were still in that honeymoon phase, still calling each other husband and wife just because we could, still wearing our rings like they were the most precious things in the world. Emma was even talking about maybe starting to try for a baby next year. Then everything went to 2 weeks after we got back from Bali, I started noticing Emma acting weird, and when I say weird, I mean like completely different person weird. Looking back now, there were so many red flags I ignored like a complete dumbass. First thing I noticed was she was always on her phone. Like before the wedding, she used to give me for checking work emails at dinner, but suddenly she's the one hiding her phone under the table and texting nonstop. When I'd walk into the room, she'd quickly flip her phone over or switch apps, but my dumbass just thought she was planning some kind of surprise for me or something. Then she started staying late at the Life Center all the time. Now for context, yeah, she'd had late nights before when they'd get emergency cases, but this was different. She'd tell me there was an injured eagle or something that needed overnight monitoring, but her story started having holes. Like one night she said she had to stay late for a hurt fox, but I saw on the center's Instagram that they'd already released that fox that morning. Still didn't want to believe what was obviously happening. I was crazy busy with work during all this, had this huge project, designing a 50-story building downtown that was causing All kinds of structural challenges. The worst part, it was for Ryan's hospital. They were expanding their trauma center and my firm landed the contract. That's probably how Olivia knew he was back. She saw the project plans at our place one night when she was over with Emma. Then her bestie Olivia started showing up at our place more often. Now let me tell you about Olivia, 32, female. This chick has been divorced twice before, 30, has a new boyfriend every month and loves stirring up drama. She's got that "if you can't handle me at my worst" quote as her Instagram bio, if that tells you anything. Emma and her got close at work. Olivia is a receptionist at the wildlife center and I never liked her but kept my mouth shut, but something about her always bothered me, but I couldn't put my finger on it until later found out through James that she'd actually tried to get my number when I first started coming to the wildlife center about the hawk situation. Apparently she'd been pretty interested, but I was already focused on Emma. I should have realized sooner how bitter she was about that whole thing, but I never mentioned that to Emma. I'd overhear them whispering and giggling in the kitchen, but they'd go quiet as soon as I walked in. Once I heard Olivia say something like, "You deserve to be happy and you can't help how you feel." But I tried to ignore it. Looking back, Olivia was basically pouring poison in Emma's ear 24/7. I remember the exact morning everything fell apart. I was in my home office reviewing these complicated foundation plans, had been up since 5 a.m. trying to figure this out. Emma comes in looking like she hadn't slept, still in her PJs, even though it was like 11 a.m. She sits down on the couch in my office and starts crying, not like normal crying, but that ugly crying where you can barely understand what someone's saying. I'm thinking someone died or something. Turns out Olivia had convinced her to meet up with her ex Ryan a few days ago. Apparently, they'd been texting for weeks before that. Ryan wasn't just any ex, he was her college sweetheart, the guy she dated for 4 years before he left to join Doctors Without Borders in Africa. Now he's back in town working as some hotshot trauma surgeon at the local hospital. And this piece of work actually told Emma he'd made a huge mistake, leaving her, and still had feelings for her, and instead of telling him to off like any normal married person would, Emma's there crying about how confused she is and how she needs to figure things out. She actually sat there and tried to explain to me how Olivia helped her realize she had unresolved feelings that she needed to explore. Said she owed it to herself to figure out if she still had feelings for Ryan before fully committing to our marriage. I'm sitting there like, that we're already married. The thank you cards from our wedding weren't even sent out yet. FS, you want to know the most up part? She tried to make it sound like she was doing me a favor, said something like, "I need to be sure about us so we don't end up divorced in 5 years when we have kids." I just sat there staring at her, probably looking like an idiot with my mouth hanging open. Looking back, Olivia's whole plan was pretty obvious. She is the one who first accidentally mentioned to Emma that Ryan was back in town working at the hospital, started casually bringing him up in conversation, showing Emma his social media posts about being back from Africa. Classic manipulation, but Emma fell for it completely. But here's where gets real. Instead of doing what she probably expected, begging her to stay, crying, promising to be a better husband or whatever, I just started laughing, not like happy laughter, but that kind of laugh you do when something is so up. It's almost funny. She looks at me like I'm having a mental breakdown. Maybe I was TBH. Then I did something that surprised even me. I opened my laptop, Googled best divorce lawyers in our city, and started making calls right there in front of her. Emma completely freaked out. "What are you doing?" I said I needed time to think, not that I wanted a divorce. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "No, what you need is to get the out of my house." Not my proudest moment, but hey, I was running on like 2 hours of sleep and my whole life was imploding. She starts crying harder, saying I'm being unfair, that I don't understand how complicated this is for her. Then she hits me with this, "Ryan was my first love. I need to know if there's still something there. I'll always wonder what if I don't explore this." That's when I lost it. Told her, "You know what's not complicated? Marriage vows. You either meant them or you didn't, and clearly you didn't." Then she tried to turn it around on me, said I was being controlling and unsupportive by not letting her figure out her feelings. Said Olivia told her that any man who truly loved her would understand and give her space to figure things out. By the way, Olivia, seriously, I pulled up our wedding video on my phone, literally had to scroll past hundreds of honeymoon pics to find it. Made her watch the part where she promised to forsake all others. Asked her if she was lying then or just lying now. She got real quiet after that, then tried a different approach. Said maybe Koo's counseling would help, that we could work through this together. I told her the only thing I needed to work through was finding a good lawyer. Then she dropped the bomb that really showed what kind of person she is. She says Ryan's just coming off a 36-hour shift at the hospital. He said I could come stay with him while we figure this out. She already had bags packed in her car. Turns out she'd been planning this for days, had already moved some of her stuff to his place while I was working my ass off on this huge project. She was literally planning her exit strategy with her ex. Cool. I wish I could say I kept my cool, but nah. Started going through our wedding gifts, most still unopened, and literally making 2 piles. She's not getting, and She can have real mature I know. Then I called my buddy Kyle, the one in Dubai, and he got on the first flight back. True bro move. Emma tried to say I was being dramatic getting him involved. I reminded her she's the one who got her ex and toxic bestie involved in our marriage, so maybe sit this one out. The next few hours were a blur. Emma kept switching between crying, trying to explain herself, and getting mad at me for not being understanding, like understanding of what exactly, that my wife's getting ready to cheat on me with her ex and wants my permission. The whole time she kept saying, "Sir, like I still love you, and this doesn't mean I don't care about you, and my personal favorite, you'll always be special to me," like she was breaking up with a high school boyfriend and not her husband of 2 weeks. I finally told her she had two choices: either cut all contact with Ryan immediately, and we maybe try to work through this, or leave right now and we're done forever. She literally said, "Why does it have to be so black and white?" That's when I knew it was over. Told her to get out and not come back. She tried to hug me before leaving. The audacity, and I just walked away. The sound of her car driving off is still stuck in my head. Watched her pull away from our dream house, probably heading straight to Ryan's place, while our wedding cards were still sitting on the kitchen counter. Spent that night getting blackout drunk with Kyle on our back patio. He'd landed by then. Deleted all my social media because I couldn't handle seeing her face. Called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years, so I'm hungover of the morning after Emma left, sitting on my couch with Kyle trying to figure out WTF to do next, when someone starts pounding on my front door like aggressive cop style, knocking. I'm thinking maybe Emma came back to get more of her stuff, but nope, it's her dad Mike. Now let me tell you about Mike. Dude's about 6 feet 4 inches in, covered in military tattoos, looks like he could snap me in half. Marine who now runs this super successful security company. He'd always been cool with me, but seeing him on my doorstep that morning had me Sir Bricks. I opened the door expecting him to punch me or something. Honestly, wouldn't have blamed him. His daughter probably told him some BS story about me being in Sir. Instead, this big scary dude just looks at me and says my daughter's a Sir. Idiot. Got any coffee? Turns out Emma had called her mom, crying about how I was being unreasonable and cruel by not supporting her need to explore things with Ryan. Her mom bought it. They've always been super close, but Mike wasn't having any of it. We sit in my kitchen, me, Kyle, and Mike, drinking coffee and Jack Daniels. Mike starts telling us how he never liked Ryan back in college, said something always seemed off about him. Then he drops this bomb: Ryan had actually cheated on Emma back then, before the whole Doctors Without Borders thing. Emma never knew her friend had told Mike, but they decided not to tell her because she was too fragile at the time. So now I'm sitting there realizing my wife left me for a guy who cheated on her years ago, and she doesn't even know it. You can't make this up. Mike was actually the one who recommended my divorce lawyer. Turns out he'd ed the same guy for a business dispute. He also offered to have some of his security company guys talk to Ryan, but I turned that down. LOL. Tempting though. The next few days were a mess. I had to call my boss and explain why I needed time off from the skyscraper project. Dude was actually super understanding. Turns out his first wife had done something similar. He gave me 2 weeks paid leave and said the project would still be there when I got back. The worst part was dealing with all our shared stuff. Our house looked like a wedding. Threw in it gifts everywhere, cards, photos, found our marriage certificate in a pile of mail, and had a legit breakdown. Emma's little brother James, who works at my firm as a junior engineer, came by to get some of her stuff. Poor kid was caught in the middle. Told me Emma was staying at Ryan's place and acting like a completely different person. Said she was posting all these weird quotes on Instagram about following your heart and finding your true path. The family dynamics got real messy real quick. Emma's mom was fully team Emma, yapping stuff like you need to give her space to figure things out and marriage is about understanding and patience. Meanwhile, Mike and James were on my side, which caused some huge fights at their house. Then Olivia started running her mouth at the wildlife center, telling everyone Emma left me because I was emotionally unavailable and working too much. Several of Emma's coworkers, who I thought were our friends, started unfollowing me on social media. Real mature. But here's where karma started kicking in. Remember that huge project I was working on? Turns out Ryan's hospital was one of our clients. I called my boss and explained the situation. He immediately requested a different project manager takeover. Cause of the personal conflict: Ryan apparently threw a fit when he found out he'd have to deal with delays. Cause of the switch: the financial was a nightmare. We had just combined our bank accounts after the wedding, had to freeze everything and start untangling our money. Thank God we hadn't bought a house yet. We're still saving up for a down payment. The only real asset we had was my condo that I'd bought before meeting her. Emma tried calling me a few times during all this, left these long rambling voicemails about how she still cares about me and hopes we can be friends someday. Like, yeah, sure, let me pencil that in. Right after I finished burning all our wedding photos, her dad kept me updated on what was happening on their end. Apparently Emma and Ryan were playing happy couple all over town, going to fancy restaurants, posting cute pics together, acting like she hadn't just blown up her marriage for this BS. The worst part: found out they'd been texting before our wedding. James discovered it by accident. He was helping Emma set up her new work iPad, and it synced with her old messages through the family cloud account. He saw the texts from Ryan going back months. Some of them were from the week before our wedding. My own brother-in-law had to be the one to tell me. That's when I decided to let go and focus on myself. I threw myself back into work. Remember that skyscraper project I was working on? Turned out all those late nights at the office while Emma was figuring out her feelings paid off. My design actually saved the client millions in foundation costs. Boss was so impressed he fast-tracked my promotion to senior project lead. Meanwhile, Emma's whole finding herself fantasy started falling apart. James, her brother, kept me in the loop, cause we still worked together. Apparently living with Ryan wasn't the romantic dream she imagined. Dude's a workaholic, ironic given her complaints about my hours, leaves his dirty scrubs everywhere, and still acts like a college frat boy with his doctor buddies. Katie from the Wildlife Center finally told me what had been going on. Turns out Olivia had been playing both sides the whole time. She'd been telling Emma that Ryan was her true love, while simultaneously fishing for information about him. The whole time, she was pushing Emma to leave me. She was laying groundwork to go after Ryan herself. Real piece of work. She wanted Emma to feel the same pain she felt when I chose Emma instead of her. And the irony of it all is still unreal. Emma caught them having lunch together a few times, and when she confronted Olivia about it, that snake actually shrugged and said, "Well, you were married when you started talking to Ryan, so what's the difference, LMAO?" The karma was chef's kiss. Then something unexpected happened. Katie, one of the senior vets at the Wildlife Center, reached out to me. She had been Emma's mentor when she first started there, and she was genuinely disgusted by how everything went down. Katie had seen with her own eyes how much overtime I worked to pay for the wedding, and she couldn't stand listening to Emma tell everyone I was controlling and worked too much. Katie became my eyes and ears at the center. She sent me a screenshot of Emma crying in the break room because Ryan had forgotten their 1-month anniversary. Like, you left your husband for this dude and you're crying over a 1-month anniversary. Make it make sense. One of them, Katie changed her name for privacy, sent me screenshots of Emma crying in the break room because Ryan had forgotten their 1-month anniversary. Like, you left your husband for this dude and you're crying about a 1-month anniversary. Make it make sense. The real turning point came when James told me there was something I needed to hear. He'd seen Emma at their parents' house when he went to pick up some stuff. He said she looked completely different from the sister he knew, wearing all this fancy designer stuff. Apparently Ryan makes good money, but she looked tired, sad. She tried to hug me, what TF? And I just stepped back and asked her how her journey of self-discovery was going. She started crying, saying she missed me, missed our life together, said Ryan wasn't who she thought he was. You know what I did? I laughed. It was hilarious. I told her I had a meeting to get to, I didn't, and I walked away. The old me would have tried to comfort her, maybe even thought about taking her back. The new me grabbed a protein shake and crushed my deadlift PR that night. Then I got a call from a headhunter about this massive project in Singapore. They'd heard about my foundation design solutions and wanted me to lead their new eco-friendly skyscraper development. 2-year contract, 7 figures, full relocation package. I took it without hesitating. When the news started circulating, because people always talk, Emma showed up at my office hysterical, saying I couldn't leave, that she was confused about her feelings, that maybe she'd made a mistake. I just looked at her and said, that sounds like a you problem, then went back to my blueprints. The look on her face was priceless. Apparently one of Ryan's co-workers saw Emma crying in my office and told him about it. Ryan, being the insecure man-child he is, completely lost his started blowing up Emma's phone, demanding to know why she was talking to me. Mind you, this is the same dude who had no problem texting my wife before our wedding. But sure bro, go off. Here's where it gets good though. While Ryan was having his little meltdown about Emma talking to me, guess who was blowing up his phone? Yep, Olivia. Turns out they'd been having lunch together pretty regularly. And by lunch I mean meeting up in his office when Emma was at work. How do I know? Steve, the project manager who took over the hospital contract after I stepped away, saw them together constantly during site meetings. Being a decent guy, he kept me in the loop, even sent me photos of them looking pretty cozy during what were supposed to be professional consultations. The same girl who helped Emma blow up our marriage was now making moves on her new man. You literally cannot make this, sir. How do I know all this? Because my firm was still handling the hospital project, just with a different team. One of the project managers, Steve, saw Ryan and Olivia together all the time during site meetings. He felt guilty about the whole situation, especially after seeing how it affected the project timeline. So he started keeping me updated on what was happening. Emma eventually found out during some fancy dinner she had planned for Ryan's birthday. She'd spent a week planning it, cooking his favorite food, which she never cooked for me by the way, bought him an expensive watch, and right in the middle of dinner Olivia drunk texted Ryan saying she missed their lunch meetings and hoped Emma didn't check his second phone. Second phone. This dude had an entire second phone just for texting Olivia. Real classy. Emma apparently lost it, stormed out of their apartment around 11 p.m., tried calling her mom but she was on a cruise, called her dad but he basically told her you made your bed lie in it, then called her brother James but he was working late at our firm on my team now, I got him promoted last week, guess. She ended up calling me at midnight crying about how Ryan was just like all other men, how she had made a huge mistake, how she never should have left. I let it go to voicemail and sent that __ straight to my lawyer. The next day was pure chaos at the Wildlife Center. Emma showed up to work and found Olivia acting like nothing had happened. They got into this massive screaming match in the break room. Katie, bless her, had the presence of mind to record the whole thing on her phone. She sent it to me right after, knowing I'd need it for the divorce proceedings. The best part was that right in the middle of their fight, Ryan showed up trying to explain, saying he and Olivia were just friends and Emma was overreacting. Then Olivia, this absolute snake, looked Emma dead in the eyes and said, "At least I waited until he was single unlike some people." The Wildlife Center actually had to call security. Emma and Olivia both got written up, Ryan got escorted out. It was beautiful chaos. It honestly felt like the universe wanted me to see everything clearly. James kept me updated from the family side, Mike from the parent side, Steve from the hospital project side, and Katie from the Wildlife Center. Everyone could see the mess Emma had created, and nobody was letting her rewrite the story. Meanwhile, I was in my office finalizing my Singapore contract, getting ready to piece out of the entire situation. The company was even paying for Kyle to come work with me, gave him a senior engineering position because he's actually brilliant when he's not babysitting my drunk ass. Emma tried damage control. She sent me this long email about how she sees things clearly now and realizes what she threw away. Said leaving me was the biggest mistake of her life. Said Ryan was just a fantasy and reality hit her hard. My response was simple. Cool story. Please direct all future communication to my lawyer. Then she tried getting her family involved. Her mom finally got back from the cruise and showed up at my place unannounced, talking about how young people make mistakes and true love deserves second chances. Mike, Emma's dad, found out and was furious. He came to get her, but not before telling me he's still coming to Singapore to visit once I'm settled. Legend. I found out through James that Emma moved back in with her parents. Ryan was apparently already dating some nurse from pediatrics. Olivia got fired from the Wildlife Center for creating a hostile work environment. Took them long enough. My firm decided to throw this huge farewell party for me last Friday. They rented out a fancy rooftop bar downtown and invited basically everyone from the company plus some clients. James, Emma's brother who works with me, helped plan it. He specifically didn't tell his family about it for obvious reasons, but somehow Emma found out anyway. I'm pretty sure Olivia told her since she's still friends with one of our receptionists. The party was actually going great at first. All my work friends were there, even some of my college buddies showed up. I was feeling good. I got my Singapore visa approved that morning. My new place there was all set up, and I'm in the best shape of my life thanks to all that post-breakup gym time. Then around 10 p.m., guess who shows up? Emma. But it gets better. She shows up in the dress, the one she wore on our first date, the one I always said was the moment I fell in love with her. She'd kept it all these years and decided this was the moment to bring it out again. She clearly planned this dramatic entrance, showed up right when people were giving speeches, probably thinking it would turn into some romantic movie moment. Instead, security stopped her at the door because she wasn't on the list. I didn't even notice at first because I was talking to a really cool architect from the Singapore firm. James came running up to me saying, "Dude, Emma's here and she's making a scene." I went out to the lobby and there she was, crying and trying to convince security to let her in. She saw me and immediately started going on about how she made a horrible mistake, how Ryan meant nothing, how she wanted to come to Singapore with me. This was happening in front of half my coworkers who had come out to watch the drama. Her mascara was running. She had clearly been drinking, And she was wearing that dress that didn't even fit her right anymore because she'd lost weight from all the stress of her own dumb decisions. Then she dropped another bomb. She had actually bought a ticket to Singapore, a real plane ticket for next week, with this whole plan about showing up at my new place and convincing me to take her back. She thought it was romantic. I thought it was straight-up stalker behavior. I just looked at her and said, "You need help? Professional help?" And then I went back inside to enjoy the rest of my night. I went back inside to my party, but Emma wasn't done. She tried to follow me in, security grabbed her, and she started screaming that I never really loved her, because if I did I would forgive her one mistake. That's when Kyle stepped in. He looked at her and said, "One mistake? You mean like texting your ex before the wedding or moving in with him 2 weeks after? Those mistakes?" Emma went dead quiet. Then she started crying even harder, which I honestly didn't think was possible, saying she was just confused and scared and that Ryan manipulated her. And here's the best part. While all of this was happening, guess who walked by the building? Ryan, with the pediatric nurse he's apparently dating now. He saw Emma having a full meltdown in her old dress, looked uncomfortable and just kept walking. Didn't even acknowledge her. The look on Emma's face when she saw them together almost made me feel bad for her. Almost. Security finally convinced her to leave, but not before she tried to hand me a letter she'd written. I didn't take it. She dropped it on the ground and Kyle picked it up after she left. We read it later that night when we were drunk and holy. It was pages of her rewriting our entire relationship history to make herself the victim. The party actually got better after she left. Everyone was buying me drinks, telling me I dodged a bullet. The architect from Singapore, let's call her Sarah because irony is fun, gave me her number and said she'd show me around when I get there. Later I found out Emma went to Ryan's place after leaving the party and the nurse answered the door. That didn't go well. Last I heard, Emma's in therapy now. Good for her, I guess. Too little, too late. A couple of days later I was getting ready to head to the airport. Everything was packed. I'd said goodbye to my parents, got my place ready for the renters. I actually felt good about where my life was headed. I had a 6 a.m. flight to Singapore with a connection in Dubai, where Kyle lives. My parents and James were driving me. Simple plan, right? Of course not. We got to the airport around 4 a.m. And guess who was standing at the underscore check-in counter? Emma. With luggage. This girl really thought she was about to pull off some romantic comedy airport scene. Underscore. She'd bought a ticket to Dubai, not even Singapore, just Dubai because that's all she could afford, I guess, and was planning to convince me mid-flight? Follow me to Singapore? I still don't know what the plan was. The best part? She brought her dad, Mike, thinking he'd help convince me. But Mike, absolute legend that he is, was actually there to stop her. James had told him about her plan, and he came prepared to drag her home if he had to. Emma saw me and launched into this rehearsed speech about how love means fighting for what matters and how she wouldn't let me go without trying one last time. Meanwhile, Mike was standing behind her looking like he wanted to disown her. Can't blame him. Then she pulled out this photo album. It was full of pictures from our relationship, our wedding, everything. She must have spent days putting it together. She really thought I'd look at a few old photos and forget about her blowing up our marriage. I didn't even argue. I just walked around her and went to check in. She started crying again, saying she'd prove her love by following me to Singapore if she had to. That's when Mike finally stepped in. He grabbed her suitcase and said, "The only place you're following anyone is back home. You're embarrassing yourself and more importantly you're embarrassing me." I have never seen Emma shut up that fast. And while all of this was happening, guess who else was at the airport? Sarah. She was on my flight because she'd been in town for the project handover. She walked up, gave me a hug, and asked if I was ready for our dinner plans in Singapore later that week. The look on Emma's face was priceless. It was like her brain short-circuited trying to process that I was actually moving on. She started this strange laugh-cry thing and said, "You're already dating? I thought what we had was special." That was the moment I'd been waiting for. I told her calmly what we had was special, and you traded it for a fantasy with a guy who's already moved on to someone else. That's on you, not me. Mike practically dragged her out of the airport. The last thing I heard was her crying that I was being cruel by moving on. The irony of that statement was unbelievable. The flight itself was amazing. I even got bumped to first class. I had a couple of drinks with Sarah and we talked about architecture, about life, about everything. Turns out we have a lot more in common than I expected. She's brilliant, driven, and most importantly single. We're having dinner tomorrow. I landed in Singapore a few hours ago, and my new place is insane. Full view of the entire city skyline, even a private pool. A little while ago, I got a text from Mike saying Emma has finally agreed to get serious about therapy. She moved back in with her parents, quit her job at the wildlife center because there was too much drama with Olivia still hanging around, and she's apparently working on herself now. Good for her, I guess. Last I heard about Ryan, he's already engaged to the nurse. It's been like 2 months, but sure, that'll work out great. I'm sure. Olivia got fired from the wildlife center and is now working at some sketchy private zoo. Karma has a strange sense of humor. I'm sitting here looking out at the Singapore skyline and, honestly, I feel good about life. Tomorrow I start work on the biggest project of my career. Next weekend I have a date with a gorgeous architect. My best friend and Emma's brother, who feels more like my brother now if I'm being honest, are joining me here soon. Sometimes the worst things that happen to you end up pushing you exactly where you're meant to be. To everyone who followed this whole crazy story, thank you for the support. Special shout out to the people who told me to hit the gym and focus on myself. You were right. And Emma, if you're somehow reading this, because I know you still check my Reddit even though I made a throwaway, I genuinely hope you figure your underscore out. I just won't be around to see it. It's time to start my new life. Final edit. Stop asking for Sarah's social media. Not going to happen. Edit 2. Yes, I kept the photo album. I'm gonna mail it back to Emma's parents. Some memories aren't mine to keep. Edit 3. For everyone asking about prenups, yeah, I learned that lesson the hard way. I've already talked to a Singapore lawyer about protecting my assets going forward. I'm never making that mistake again. Final edit. Holy underscore this blew up. Thanks for all the awards, but maybe donate to your local animal shelter instead. At least some good can come from this mess.